The child hadn't spoken since her escape from the warship. None of their healers, translators, or AI whisperers could get through until one quiet man with burnt cookie crumbs on his collar walked past. She sniffed the air, smiled, and whispered her first words. "He smells like cookies and safety." And the queen, who had never known either, stopped breathing. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from. And if stories like this move you, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's story might just break your heart open in the best way. The sky above Lytheris 9 shimmered with cold auroras, painting the Capitol dome in pulses of soft violet. Inside the royal chamber, vaulted like the hollow of a celestial harp, delegates sat in silence, every eye turned toward the smallest presence among them. She was seated on a raised cushion of woven crystal fibers, her bare feet tucked beneath her, her bioluminescent skin dim. The alien child had not spoken in 17 cycles, not since the rescue, not since the warship. Her name had been whispered between analysts, diplomats, and whispercasters. Yari, crownward of the Thrillan line, sole surviving kin of the late High Consort, and she would not speak. The queen stood beside her, statuesque in a gown of star silk, her crown a halo of living light that pulsed with her breath. Her eyes, cold, regal, ancient, watched the child with something tighter than sorrow, sharper than disappointment. No gesture, no infusion, no offering of light fruit or flame song had drawn a sound from the girl. Her mind was sealed, her heart more so. Across the chamber, behind a partition of tempered shimmer glass, the maintenance corridor hummed. Doors opened. A figure entered. The queen did not notice, but the child did. He was human, broad-shouldered, dressed in grey overalls patched at the elbows, a utility belt slung low on one hip. His name tag, half faded, read W. Doyle. He carried a handheld fuse splicer and a pouch of low-grade thermoflakes. The scent of synthetic cinnamon trailed behind him. Most didn't notice it, but Yari's head turned. No one had ever seen her move that fast. The girl's nose twitched. Her wide, violet black eyes blinked once. Then she stood, slowly, like someone rising from deep underwater. Her gaze locked onto the human. "Who authorized a technician in the observance chamber?" snapped the queen, voice slicing across the room like glass wind. Doyle froze. He tapped his badge. Maintenance order. Lighting grid was misfiring in quadrant D. No one answered. Because Yari, small and glowing and silent for months, took a step forward. Then another. Then she ran. Delegates gasped. The queen's hand lifted, fingers curled to command, but it was too late. The child hurled herself into the arms of the human. He caught her out of reflex, eyes wide, tool pouch clinking against his thigh, and in the sudden hush of a galaxy's worth of watching eyes, the child leaned in, nestled into his neck, and whispered, "He smells like cookies and safety." The queen did not speak, not at first. Her crown dimmed slightly, not from weakness but from confusion, from something older, more dangerous. Remembering, the chamber, once echoing with protocol and precision, now pulsed with the heartbeat of a word spoken too softly to be anything but real. The child's voice had returned not for her lineage, not for her throne, but for a stranger who smelled like something her species hadn't catalogued. Comfort. And from that moment, nothing in the galaxy would remain unchanged. He didn't know why the child had clung to him. Not really. Walter Doyle had repaired fusion conduits on asteroid rigs, replaced burnt light panels in oxygen farms, and once chased a glitching sanitation bot through an open airlock. He was used to strange days. But this was beyond strange. This was the kind of moment you don't touch, like the surface of a memory too hot to hold. Yari's arms stayed wrapped around his neck long after the queen had spoken again. "Put her down," she said, though her tone lacked its usual imperial weight. Walter didn't move, not because he was disobedient, but because the girl whimpered the second he shifted his grip. His arms, calloused from a life of labor, adjusted gently, protective, careful. She clung to his shoulder like it was the only solid surface in a world made of fog. Behind them, the royal advisors murmured in disbelief. "He's human. He's unvetted. Where's the psychological clearance? He's from the vending bay." That last part stuck hardest. The vending bay wasn't a real department, it was a nickname, a joke among the Royal Tower crew. Walter Doyle had fixed the replicators on sub-level 6 so many times that he knew which coils made the cookies slightly burnt, slightly sweet. He liked them that way. He never asked why. Just something about the smell, it steadied him. Yari remembered that smell. Has she been exposed to earth spices? Asked a diplomat with spines for hair and gold-threaded robes. Has cinnamon triggered a trauma response? No, said the healer beside the Queen, scanning rapidly. This isn't trauma, it's imprinting. The Queen's eyes sharpened. Explain. The healer's gaze flicked from the child to the man holding her. Thrillin children, when exposed to overwhelming danger, sometimes imprint on a figure of perceived safety. It's rare. Most imprint on maternal surrogates, guardians, bloodline anchors. But this is a janitor, snapped one advisor. Technician, muttered Walter, still not putting the girl down. She shifted in his arms, little antennae twitching against his jaw. Her bioluminescent freckles blinked like tiny stars. He looked down at her, awkwardly. You okay, kid? She didn't answer. Instead, she placed one small hand over his heart and smiled like someone who had finally come home. In the farthest corner of the room, beneath a column of shifting starlight, the Queen exhaled just once and said, "Let him remain." Gasps fluttered across the chamber like startled birds. Protocol dictated he be removed, interrogated, scrubbed of memory. But instead, guards stepped aside. A throne of 10,000 laws bent not for force, but for comfort. Walter wasn't a hero, he wasn't anyone, but he smelled like cookies. And somehow, in a galaxy ruled by power and fear, that meant more than all the crowns combined. And Yari, for the first time since the warship exploded, slept right there, in his arms. They thought it was a fluke, a chemical glitch, something primal and unexplainable. But the moment Yari fell asleep in Walter's arms, head nestled against the collar of his faded jumpsuit, lips parted in soft breath, the chamber changed. Silence didn't fall. It softened, as if even the walls, carved from moon-sheared stone and laced with memory circuits, were holding their breath. Walter remained standing. He didn't know where to sit, didn't know if he even should. He glanced up, eyes scanning the tiered balconies filled with beings far above his rank. Faces shimmered with iridescent scales, or blinked with fractal compound eyes, or glared from beneath gold-threaded veils. He was being judged by species who'd watched stars die. He shifted his weight. Yari stirred and mumbled. Everyone froze, and then she spoke. Don't make him leave. The words were quiet, but clear. High Thrillin, spoken in the lilting cadence of the royal bloodline. Every delegate heard it. The Queen's shoulders stiffened, her gaze narrowing. This was no mimicry, this was fluent. Intentional. She spoke, whispered one senator. She hasn't spoken in weeks. No, said the Queen softly. She hasn't spoken since the Day of Flames. That phrase, Day of Flames, carried weight. It was the name the court had given to the moment the royal flagship was breached, the consort's chambers obliterated, and Yari rescued from the wreckage with ash in her lungs and silence in her bones. Until now. Walter blinked. Wait. What did she say? A translator leaned in. She said not to make you leave. He gave a soft, nervous laugh. Well, that's a first. The Queen took a step forward, her crown pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Human. He looked up. Ma'am, Walter Doyle. Maintenance Division. Yes, ma'am. Do you have prior experience with Thrillin children? He shook his head. No, ma'am. I mostly fix vending units and calibrate thermal fuses. Her jaw flexed. Then why does my heir speak for you? Walter looked down at the girl in his arms. She was breathing evenly now, fingers curled gently around the strap of his uniform. He didn't know how to answer, so he told the truth. I don't know. I was walking by. I guess she remembered your scent, said the healer softly. Walter frowned. My scent? Burnt cookie. Synthetic cinnamon. Processed sugars with traces of earth grain oils. That combination imprinted on her during a moment of trauma. And now, she thinks I'm safe. Walter finished quietly. Not thinks, said the healer. She knows. The Queen said nothing. Her expression was unreadable. but the light around her crown dimmed slightly, like a thought buried too deep to name. Her daughter had not spoken for anyone, not even her, until now. And it wasn't power that broke the silence. It was warmth. The chamber reconvened in a smaller hall, quieter, wrapped in layered acoustic foam and sapphire filament to soften echoes and carry only truth. It was called the Prism Room, a space meant for declarations not yet ready for law. Only 12 beings were allowed inside. Walter was not supposed to be one of them, but Yari wouldn't let go. She sat in his lap now, her arms around his chest, as if the rest of the galaxy were a storm, and he was the eye. No matter how the guards approached, or how softly the queen gestured, she clung to him tighter, whispering in her strange musical tongue, words they couldn't translate, words she hadn't spoken since the flames. The queen stood at the far end of the room. She hadn't Saturday, not once. He is no one, she said. Not of station, not of record, not even bonded. Her voice wasn't angry. It was cold, careful. The kind of voice used when logic must replace grief. He isn't meant to be anyone, said the high healer. And yet, here we are. Are we to allow scent to supersede sovereignty? She chose him. She's a child. She's the heir. That last part hit the room like a falling star. The queen's breath caught. Not visible, not audible, but the crown dimmed again just for a second, as if mourning something quietly. She was meant to bond to a Detellan mentor. She said, we had prepared an entire lineage of caretakers, psychosocial attunement, neural mesh compatibility, and yet, the healer repeated gently, she smells a burnt cookie and says he's safe. Walter squirmed. I really didn't mean to cause trouble. Your, radiance. The queen's gaze cut to him. She did not smile. You were a footnote, Mr. Doyle, a technician in a jumpsuit. Your file includes nothing exceptional. Walter shrugged. I'm pretty okay at fixing vending machines. Yari giggled into his shoulder. Every eye in the room snapped toward her. It wasn't a laugh of hysteria or confusion. It was joy, light, playful mischief that children were supposed to have before the world burns it away. The healer's voice was hushed. She giggled. Impossible, said a senator. No Thrillan child giggles during imprint. She just did, said the queen. And for the first time in years, the queen didn't look like a monarch. She looked like a mother. Yari's voice floated out again, small and bright. He smells like cookies and safety. Walter chuckled softly. You really like saying that, huh? She nodded. The queen stepped forward slowly now, carefully, as though any sudden movement might break the thread binding her daughter to this impossible man. You weren't the father we chose, she said, but something in her did. Walter looked down at the girl curled against him, then up at the queen, and he didn't smile, but he nodded. I'll keep her safe, he said, even if I don't know how. It began with a smell. That was what the memory thread revealed. In Thrillan culture, memory wasn't just images or sound. It was scent, temperature, texture, what they called the thread of recall, woven directly from the nervous system. The child's mind, still fragile from trauma, had finally opened a strand, not because of therapy, not because of ritual, but because of the man who smelled like cookies. The healers dimmed the lights. The queen watched from behind a clear barrier. Walter sat on a cushion, not quite knowing how to hold himself, hands flat on his thighs, boots still stained with coolant dust. Yari sat beside him, one hand in his, the other resting on the activator orb. The orb pulsed once, then again, and then the air changed. The scent came first, burnt sugar, synthetic flour, and the tang of melted polymer packaging. A vending bay, the kind no Thrillan child had ever visited, but Yari had, and the room rippled with her memory. Walter blinked. The scene projected above them, a dim maintenance hallway, coils of wire hanging loose, flickering overhead light. A toddler alien girl, no taller than his knee, stood in the corner with soot on her face and terror in her eyes. Her hands were clamped over her ears, and he, Walter, walked in, muttering curses under his breath. Stupid machine. If I don't get this coil realigned, I swear. He stopped, looked down. Whoa. Hey, you okay, kid? The memory version of him knelt, awkward and untrained, holding a half-eaten cookie from the vending tray. The girl didn't move. She trembled. But then the scent reached her, faint, warm, full of everything that wasn't war. She stepped forward, took the cookie, bit it, and smiled. The real Yari, sitting beside him, whispered, "That was the first time I remembered what safety felt like." Walter swallowed hard. That was you?" She nodded. "You didn't say anything back then." "I didn't need to," she said softly. "You didn't ask for my name. You didn't ask who I belonged to. You just gave me a cookie and sat with me until the noises stopped." He looked at her. She looked at him. And above them, the projection shifted to a moment where he curled his jacket around her shoulders and leaned back against a bulkhead, letting her sleep while emergency lights flashed red. "I thought you were someone's kid," he said. "I figured they'd come find you. They didn't." That was when the Queen finally spoke. "I searched every level of that wreck. No one told me she'd made it to the lower decks." Her voice was not angry now. It was quiet, wrung out. Yari didn't look at her. "I only remember him." The Queen didn't reply, but her crown dimmed again. This time, in mourning for the mother she hadn't been able to be, because a stranger with cookie crumbs on his collar had gotten there first. The next morning, the Queen summoned the Tribunal of Bonds. Not out of ceremony, out of necessity. Thrill and law dictated that any child of royal blood who imprinted on an outsider must have their connection evaluated, tested, and if found unfit, severed. It had happened twice in the Empire's history. Both times ended in grief. Neither time ended in love. Walter Doyle didn't know that. He just knew he'd been asked to wear something cleaner. He arrived in a starch-stiff uniform borrowed from the diplomatic kitchen staff. It didn't fit. The sleeves were too short and the collar too tight, but Yari grinned when she saw him, and that made the itching worth it. "Are you ready?" she asked. Walter gave a small smile. "Nope," she giggled again. The tribunal chamber was built like a mirrored bowl. Every sound echoed in soft chorus. Above, the dome reflected the sky of whichever homeworld the court most recently ruled over. Today, it was Thrillanis, a sky the color of glacier milk, threaded with floating gardens and serpent-like wind beasts. Walter's breath fogged faintly in the high-altitude chill. "You don't have to do this," he said, voice low, as the officials took their places in the curved pews. Yari looked at him with eyes far older than her years. "Yes, I do." A slender figure stepped forward from the tribunal dais, a bondrite, wearing a robe stitched from the strands of archived oaths. "We begin with resonance," the bondrite said. Walter blinked. "I'm sorry." "What?" Yari leaned close. "Just breathe." He did. The bondrite raised a crystal filament and struck it gently. It hummed, and that hum was mirrored by a strand in Yari's chest. The entire court gasped. "Impossible," one senator whispered. "She's resonating." The bondrite turned to Walter. "You have no genetic ties, no neural bindings. You are not trained in imprint anchoring. And yet, you've formed a resonance bond." "What does that mean?" Walter asked quietly. The bondrite looked to the Queen before answering. "It means she feels safe with you in a way no protocol, no science, no ceremony can simulate." Walter frowned. "You're telling me you have whole training schools for this, and all I had to do was show up with a half-eaten cookie?" Yari grinned again. "She remembers what you did when she was most afraid." The bondrite continued. "That kind of safety isn't taught. It's recognized." The Queen stood now. She cannot stay with him. The bond may be real, but it's raw, unshaped. He is not of this world. He has no lineage. She doesn't need a lineage, the healer murmured. She needs a place to heal. Walter didn't speak. He didn't argue. He just took Yari's hand and held it gently between his palms, warm, steady, human. And in that touch, something ancient moved, not the bloodline of kings, but the heartbeat of guardians who never asked to be heroes and became one anyway. The Chamber of Heirs had not opened in 4 generations. It sat beneath the central spire of the royal palace, sealed in layers of living stone and encoded memory. Only a sovereign with recognized succession could command its doors to part. Not even the Queen entered lightly. But today, she brought them both. Walter walked 2 steps behind her, as instructed. Yari walked beside him, fingers brushing his. Guards flanked the corridor with faces carved from duty. None spoke. None blinked. At the threshold, the queen paused. The doors were smooth obsidian, etched with only 3 symbols: lineage, legacy, and law. Her palm pressed against the center glyph. A soft hum vibrated through the floor. Then the doors dissolved into mist. Inside, the air was colder, sharper, as if each molecule held a memory too sacred to disturb. The room was circular, lit from beneath by pools of bioluminescent ink. Dozens of pedestals circled the perimeter, each bearing a single item of a royal heir's first inheritance: a weapon, a crownlet, a sealed oath. Walter's boots clicked on the floor. He didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. Still, Yari pulled him forward without hesitation. She walked straight to a pedestal near the back, one carved from iridescent bone. On it rested a band of woven starlight, still humming faintly. "My father's," she said. The queen's voice echoed across the stone. "He wore it at the binding of moons. It was his pledge." Yari looked up at her. Why did he never smell like safety? The queen didn't answer right away. Her shoulders straightened, but her eyes flickered with something fragile. He was born to rule. He was taught to protect. But warmth was not in his instruction. Yari touched the starlight band but didn't lift it. Walter stood silent beside her. His presence didn't fill the room. It steadied it. As though his weight didn't demand space, it offered it. "You want me to inherit this?" Yari said. "Yes, but I don't want this yet. You are the heir. The throne needs you. Although I need him." The words rang louder than protocol. The queen's jaw worked once. Her voice, when it came, was low. "The court won't understand. Then let them misunderstand." Walter glanced at the queen. "Ma'am, I'm just a—" "No," she interrupted. "You are not just anything. That is the mistake our bloodline keeps making." She walked toward the pedestal, her fingers brushing the band. "I have ruled through war, through treaty, through fire, but I have never ruled beside someone who made my daughter laugh." Walter blinked. Are you saying I can stay?" "I am saying," she said slowly, "that if you can offer her a safety I could not, then maybe the throne is less important than the person who sits on it." Yari reached up, took his hand again, and the Chamber of Heirs, once a shrine to lineage, bore silent witness to something deeper than inheritance. Choice. The council chamber was overflowing. Advisors, delegates, lawkeepers, and bondrights filled the tiers in a swirl of ceremonial cloth, iridescent scales, and polished bone armor. No one wanted to miss it. After all, it was unheard of, a royal heir refusing protocol, deferring ceremony, and clinging instead to a man whose most notable accomplishment was fixing jammed vending coils. Walter Doyle sat awkwardly in the center of it all. His jumpsuit traded for a formal robe, hastily adjusted for his frame. It itched. He'd never worn anything that shimmered when he moved. Yari sat on a floating cushion beside him, still barefoot, still smiling. The Queen of Thrillanis entered last. Silence rolled across the tiers. She didn't wear her crown. Instead, her hair was braided in the ancient way, signal of vulnerability, not dominance. A hush of fabric followed her as she moved to the center dais. The tribunal eye above them glowed with expectation. "This council is called," intoned the lead arbiter, "to review the suitability of Walter Doyle of Terra 3 as a bonded guardian to the royal heir." Snickers rippled through the benches. "Terra 3 doesn't even have a seat in the convocation," someone muttered. "His lineage has no record past 3 generations," another added. "He smells like food." A Vyari noble sneered. "Not law." The queen raised a hand. "Enough." The tribunal eye dimmed slightly. She turned to Walter. "Do you have anything you wish to say in your defense?" He scratched the back of his neck. "I didn't know I was on trial." Soft laughter stirred like wind through grass. He tried again. "Look, I know I'm not who you expected. I'm not trained. I'm not royalty. I'm not polished." He glanced at Yari. Her little hand reached out and grabbed his. "But I was there when she needed someone. I didn't know who she was. I didn't try to impress her. I didn't try to fix her. I just sat with her, gave her half a cookie, and stayed." A silence followed that wasn't quite disapproval, but it wasn't approval either. The lead arbiter cleared his throat. "Mr. Doyle, do you understand the depth of responsibility involved in the guardian bond of a Thrillin heir?" Walter nodded. "No, not really, but I'm willing to learn. And what can you possibly offer a future queen of the stars?" Walter looked down at Yari. "Consistency, honesty, a lap to sit in when the world feels too loud, and a fresh cookie at the end of a long day." Snorts of derision rang out. "Cookies," a senator spat. "Cookies are not recognized by law." The Queen's voice cut through them like a blade. "Then perhaps the law is missing something." Gasps followed, but no one argued, because in that moment, with a child curled against a man who smelled like earth and warmth, the galaxy remembered something ancient. Safety does not need recognition, it only needs to be real. The Queen summoned them privately. No advisors, no tribunal, no crown. She led them deep beneath the palace, down through echoing spiral stairs and pressure-sealed vaults that hadn't been opened in decades. Yari rode on Walter's shoulders, her small fingers tangled in his hair. He didn't ask where they were going. He only walked where the Queen led, boots echoing softly against the stone. The final door was carved from root metal, veins of memory light flowing through its surface. At the center, a sigil flickered, 3 circles, overlapping, incomplete. The Queen pressed her palm against it. "By bloodline and breath, I call the names unspoken." The door inhaled. Then it opened. Inside was a chamber that smelled of rain on warm stone. Dust floated in the air like stardust, undisturbed for ages. Scrolls lined the walls, real ones, written in ink and sealed with resin, not stored in data clouds or crystallized code. "This is the archive of forgotten guardians," the Queen said, her voice reverent. Walter blinked. "You have an archive for what? Babysitters?" She smiled. It was the first time he'd seen her do that. "Not babysitters," she said. "Custodians of safety, not of rank, not of record. People who were never written into law but who held empires together anyway." She walked to a wall etched with faint carvings. Names, dates, tiny slivers of memory. "Thrillin history celebrates warriors, rulers, tacticians," she continued. "But our oldest traditions, our truest ones, were never about power. They were about presence." She ran her fingers over a name almost too faded to see. "My nursemaid was a human. My mother never admitted it aloud, but the woman's lullabies followed me into dreams long after she passed." She turned. "And this archive? It remembers the ones the laws forget." Yari slid from Walter's shoulders and ran to the center of the room, where a stone pedestal waited. Atop it sat a single item, a small sealed jar of something pale and dry. She opened it. The scent of burnt cookie filled the chamber. Walter stared. That's the same smell." The Queen nodded. "Our archivist retrieved your old thermal coil from the vending bay, synthesized the exact compound from the crumbs lodged in its circuit board." "Why?" Walter whispered. "Because history needs to be honest. If our child remembers safety by this scent, then let it be preserved." She nodded toward a blank section of the wall. "I would like your name inscribed here." Walter blinked. "Me, yes. As a guardian. Not because of blood, not because of ceremony, but because when we were at our most broken, you were warm." He said nothing for a moment, then stepped forward. "Do I need to swear an oath or something?" Yari grinned. "Just promise you'll stay." Walter nodded. "I promise." The Queen looked at him, her eyes softer now. "Then let the archive remember," she said, "what the law tried to forget." The palace changed after that, not loudly, not with decree or celebration, but with a quiet shift that only those paying close attention could feel, like the way air smells different just before rain, or the stillness before a song begins. Guards at the main gate no longer stiffened when Walter passed. The chef on level 4 started packing an extra cookie in his midday tray. Maintenance bots blinked friendlier patterns when he walked by. And in the royal nursery, where silence had once been a law, there was now laughter. Yari taught Walter the Thrillin word for soft, which sounded like a yawn in song. He taught her how to whistle through her fingers, and she startled an entire advisory council by doing it during a tax briefing. He never sat on the throne, he never wore the crown, but the child who would one day inherit it ran to him before every meal, curled up in his lap after every lesson, and whispered her worries into the sleeve of his old earth hoodie like it was a sacred space. The queen noticed. More than once, she stood in the corridor outside the chamber and simply watched. No servants, no guards. Just her, unseen, observing the way her daughter leaned into this strange human whose only credentials were kindness and time. He didn't try to rule. He listened. He asked questions she could answer. He waited when she couldn't. And the queen, who had spent a lifetime being revered but never reached, began to understand something she had never been taught. Safety is a language too. It wasn't just protocol and security drones and reinforced palace walls. It was gentleness in a voice. It was remembering her favorite tea. It was showing up every day, even when nothing special happened. It was a human man kneeling to tie the strap of her daughter's boot while humming an off-key song about cookies. One evening, Yari came to dinner with a drawing. She placed it gently on the queen's plate. A child's sketch of a throne room scribbled with glowing crayons. At the center was a crown, but beside it, not on it, stood a man in overalls with a smile and outstretched hands. "He's not a king," Yari said, "but he's mine." The queen traced the drawing's edges with her fingertips. She did not speak, but she left the picture exactly where it was, and when she passed Walter in the hall later that night, she did something she'd never done before. She paused. "You've given her something I could not." Walter looked up from where he knelt, fixing a light panel. "Cookies?" She almost smiled. "No," she said. "Permission to feel safe." And in a palace built on legacy, law, and light, that was a kind of power no throne could replicate. It was the Thrillin' high season, a time of renewal, of ritual, of reaffirming the bonds between bloodlines and crown. But this year, it arrived with a cloud of unease. The tribunal elders had reconvened. Whispers moved like frost across the palace walls. They called it the trial of the scented truth. Publicly, it was framed as a reaffirmation of tradition. Privately, it was a challenge, a test. The old guard could not accept that their future queen clung to a human technician instead of a vetted guardian from noble stock. The queen did not protest the trial. She did not have to, because she already knew what they didn't. Safety cannot be legislated, it must be proven. Walter was summoned at dawn. No guards escorted him. He walked alone to the ceremonial amphitheater, unsure if this was a test, a trap, or some elaborate political theater. Yari was already there. She stood in the center of the circle, eyes wide but unafraid. Her robes shimmered with the gold of the heir's house. The tribunal watched from the upper tiers, draped in centuries of ceremonial arrogance. One elder stood, Walter Doyle of Terra 3. "Do you understand why you are here?" He nodded once. "I think so. You claim to offer the heir a sense of safety no other guardian has provided." "I didn't claim anything," Walter said. She said it. Murmurs. A sharp intake of breath. "Then you will now prove it," the elder said. A signal flashed. The amphitheater dimmed, and then a synthetic sound blared overhead. Sharp, jarring, a simulation of the very sirens Yari had heard the night her world ended. Her body reacted before her mind did. She flinched, shivered. Her hands rose to cover her ears. The crowd remained still. The elders watched with cold fascination. And Walter? He ran, not for show, not for spectacle. He ran to her side, dropped to one knee, and pulled her gently into his chest. He said nothing. He simply rocked her. No speeches, no commands. Just the rhythm of his breath, the curl of his arms, the warmth of presence. Within seconds, the girl who should have been consumed by memory had stilled. The sirens blared, but she pressed her cheek to his shoulder and whispered, "It's okay. I remember this part." He held her tighter. "Yeah," he said softly. "Me too." Above them, the elders sat stunned. The trial had failed to unsettle her. It had only proven what she'd said from the beginning, that he smelled like cookies and safety. The sirens faded. The amphitheater fell into silence. The queen rose last. Her voice didn't boom. It cut clean. "Is there anyone else in this chamber she would have run to?" No one answered. Because the answer was already in the arms of a human man, gently stroking her hair as if the whole galaxy could be quieted with kindness. And maybe, just maybe, it could. After the trial, nothing looked different. The corridors were still polished to mirror light. The guards still bowed. The throne still pulsed with its slow, sacred heartbeat. But something had cracked quietly, cleanly. Not the law, the perception of what mattered. Walter didn't celebrate. He didn't know how. He returned to the quiet garden between the west towers, where Yari liked to count the skyfish as they glided through the air above. She sat cross-legged in the grass, humming a tune he once played for her on a makeshift harmonica. Her hum was off-key. She didn't care. The queen arrived at dusk. No guards, no ceremony. She stood at the edge of the garden and watched her daughter draw circles in the soil with a stick Walter had carved into the shape of a cookie. She could ascend tomorrow, the queen said. The people would accept her. Walter nodded. But she's still a kid. Yes. And children do not inherit empires well. We shape them into rulers. We shave off their softness. We prepare them to be hard enough to survive. He didn't look at her. Maybe it's not the children who need reshaping. The queen's gaze sharpened. Walter stood, brushing off his hands. You want a legacy, he said. You want continuity. But the way it's always been, it didn't keep her safe. Not when it mattered. Yari looked up from her drawing. He's not mad at you, she said to her mother. He's just saying the quiet things loud. The queen smiled faintly. Yes, I see that. She stepped forward, kneeling beside her daughter in the grass. Her gown pooled around her like a lake of starlight. She reached out and ran her fingers through Yari's hair slowly. Unsure. I was taught to protect the empire, she said, but no one taught me how to protect the girl I carried into it. Yari leaned against her without words. Forgiveness didn't need language here. Walter crouched beside them, and for a moment, the throne felt like a distant, irrelevant artifact. She doesn't need to ascend yet, the queen said softly. She needs to grow. Walter nodded. With safety, not just duty. The queen looked up at him. I cannot grant you nobility. Didn't ask for it. I cannot make you her father. I didn't ask for that either. She paused. Then what do you want? Walter looked at Yari. I want to stay until she stops needing me, and maybe longer if she lets me. The queen reached into her sleeve and withdrew a small token, a thin band of braided metal and starlight, no larger than a ring. This was my first oath token, she said. It has not been worn in decades. She held it out. Walter took it, not for power, not for prestige, but because sometimes the throne is not enough. Sometimes the future doesn't need rulers. It needs guardians. The day of inheritance came, and it passed quietly. There were no parades, no fireworks, no declarations etched into the stars. Instead, the galaxy bore witness to something smaller, gentler. Yari stood at the foot of the royal dais, not seated, not crowned. She wore no armor, no regalia, only a simple robe stitched with the crest of her house and a ribbon Walter had once tied into her hair to keep it out of her eyes while they fixed a broken terminal together. The court watched. So did the outer systems, tuned in through beams of light and thought. The queen stood beside her, silent. Then, without signal or speech, Yari turned and walked down from the platform. Not away from power, but toward presence. Toward the man waiting at the base of the stairs, holding a datapad and a packet of synthetic cookie crumbs he'd saved just for her. She reached him, took the packet, hugged him, then turned to the entire hall and said, "This is Walter Doyle. He is not my father. He is not a prince. He has no noble blood, no record of glory, and no interest in power." She paused. "But when my world fell apart, he was there, not to lead me, not to fix me, but to hold the pieces steady until I could breathe again." Silence swept the room, and then she said the line that would be etched into 1,000 languages, into data streams and starlit libraries. "He smells like cookies and safety." The queen did not interrupt. She did not frown. She bowed her head, and the hall followed, not because Walter was powerful, because he was faithful, because he had made space for someone else's pain and stayed long enough for healing to begin. After the ceremony, they returned to the garden. Walter sat on the bench he'd repaired himself. Yari lay stretched across it with her feet in his lap, humming a new tune. The Queen stood at the edge, watching them beneath the blue light of the moons. "I've been thinking," Walter said. The Queen arched a brow. "Dangerous," he smirked. "Maybe we should open a school, not for ruling, for remembering, for listening." Yari sat up. "For cookies? Definitely for cookies." The Queen nodded, thoughtful. "A place where presence is power." He smiled. "Exactly. And from that quiet corner of the empire, something new began. Not a revolution, not a rebellion, but a restoration of trust, of gentleness, of a truth long buried under ceremony and stars, that in a galaxy spinning on arrogance and law, sometimes the bravest thing you can be is safe. And if safety has a scent, let it smell a little like burnt sugar, warm cloth, and the hands of someone who shows up again and again and again." The Queen stepped into the light, placed a hand on Walter's shoulder, and whispered, "Thank you for keeping her safe." He didn't answer. He didn't need to, because she already knew.